Hi everyone. I'm BeiBei, so I'm very glad to be here today. Kara asked me to talk about the San Francisco Bay Area arts, and of course that's a very large subject. I started curating science and technology art about 3 years ago in the way that I understand it, and I have been learning about the Bay Area art scene as I go. So I'll be speaking from an outsider's perspective. I'll give you that little background about myself and about Essinova so that you would know where I'm coming from and also have a context of my perspective. A very brief start in law in the very beginning of my career, but followed mostly by business in the mix of marketing, business development, PR, contract management, etc. role at either in employment or independent consultant with a variety of industries. At the moment, I am teaching executive education focused on corporate innovation at Stanford Business School, where I got my MBA. For a few years, I also had run a media boutique covering the clean tech, life sciences, health and environmental innovation. And we had a web publication and also produced digital media for clients for marketing communication purposes. It was towards the end of that period that I discovered this intersection of art, science, and technology, and I've been so fascinated with it ever since that I couldn't stop pouring time in it. After curating a virtual gallery and blogging about the space for a while on the side, I'm evolving the business into a creativity agency. We're now starting to represent some of the best science and technology artists, polymaths, and teams. And recently, a museum in Shanghai just accepted our proposal to have a group exhibition there. And we are assisting Tsinghua University in a major electronic art festival in Europe. So that as the context of my perspective, let's get into the topic of today. Everyone here is probably familiar with this story that reached the media 3 years ago, the infamous Google bus, which became a symbol of the income inequality, the growing divide, the intense tension between the art community and the tech industry. Just an anecdote that has some personal connection. Does anyone know Cell Space in the Mission? Okay, so I'm a tango dancer, and for many years, Wednesday night, Cell Space had a milonga that was well attended. It's the place to go for nuevo style or alternative style of tango. That's how I know about this place. Cell Space no longer exists. It's closed down because the site where it sits on 2050 Bryant Street is the subject to a development project. And people have been outraged. They're calling the project the Beast on Bryant. There, a petition has been going around, calling for Beauty on Bryant, trying to stop the project. So, I mean, of course, it's not the artists, but also art businesses, and this is galleries that had to go from one site alone, from that address in Union Square, because MuleSoft was expanding. So that seems like a pretty grim picture, doesn't it? As we entered the first half of 2016, though, we're seeing a rather different picture, looking from a different angle. So this was in February. Pace, the New York-based Pace Gallery, launched their first presence in Silicon Valley with a bang. This was their pop-up gallery in Menlo Park. The first show was Living Digital Space in Future Parks, and you probably have all heard of it, by Team Labs. And it's still going, and it's going to go till December. I don't have the latest statistics, but the first 3 months it drew in 45,000 visitors, which was quite an envy for a lot of the galleries or even museums in the area. And then in a 1-2 punch, they opened their permanent location in Palo Alto. This was the line waiting outside of their reception. The opening show is by James Tyrrell. Anyone know him?
Oh, yeah.
The Supernova. Then a few weeks later, another mega gallery, Gagosian, opened in San Francisco. It's the 16th worldwide location of the gallery. It looks modest, kind of facade, but don't be deceived. Behind it, the first show had boasted big names from modern art to present day, and here are some of the names. This date was rather strategic because it followed the much anticipated grand reopening of SF MoMA a few days prior, which is now the biggest modern art museum in the country. It's about the size of New York MoMA and Whitney Museum combined. SF MoMA is not the only museum that is enjoying glory these days. Asian Art Museum has expansion plan across the Bay. Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archive have slick new locations. I haven't been to either of those, but I was recently at Anderson Collection, which is the second of the three new buildings that came up in 3 years of this really ambitious Stanford Art District. For those that are really plugged into the art world, you would know that actually San Francisco is not considered to be a top-tier art city. This is a recent survey of the 50 most influential art world cities in 2015. San Francisco did not make the cut. We would rank even lower than Detroit. However, with the influx of the mega galleries and the expansion of all the top museums, that may be changing, and some is already talking about an art resurgence. So we have, on the one hand, exodus with artists becoming endangered species, and on the other hand, the city seems to be catapulting onto the world stage. There are also things happening in the middle. So in between the two Pace Gallery openings, there's another major opening, the Minnesota Street project you probably also know about. So they combine all the artists and galleries and nonprofits in a brand new project, in a brand new concept. The idea is to offer affordable rent and also to take out inefficiencies by sharing facility among different operations. So this is the venture capitalist Andy Rappaport and his wife's way to step in and do something about the exodus. And as the name suggests, it's on Minnesota Street. It's not random. It's a new anchor for a district that is already emerging as a new art and design district between the historical Dogpatch and Potrero Hill and the Mission, which is known collectively as the Do Re Mi district. So all of the museums, if they are for the top brass, the blue chip, big art, this is the up and coming. So it shows the up and coming work as a showcase, but it also shows it's a place where art is being made. The creativity process is taking place. Speaking of where art is being made, here's another form of creative space and programs that is gaining popularity not only among art institutions but also tech companies. You're probably all familiar with Jurassic. Martha has come to speak to Lisa, and this is in sharp contrast to Jurassic's really rural, serene setting. This is in a bustling urban environment. Autodesk's Pier 9 operation. Basically, it's a place where artists, makers, and fabricators come together and create their cutting-edge projects. So these are some of their projects, and really mind-boggling. These projects are pushing Autodesk's products to their beyond the limit, and also in many cases leading to new use cases that Autodesk would not have thought of themselves. Here are some of the other residencies with other organizations and companies. So now, with all of these conflicting forces and different movements in different directions, what are we to make all of this? As a whole, it seems that the city or the area is rising, is ascending in the international art stage from we're becoming something, if I can call it, more provincial to something that's more international. And the ecosystem is definitely changing, both in terms of physical locations and the players and the models. It also reminds us that art is probably not one face. The little word ART, it has so many facets, so many layers, different aspects to it. So are these changes good or bad? Here are some of my humble opinions or reflections. San Francisco Bay Area would not have been San Francisco Bay Area without its bohemian soul. A little over 100 years ago, the city hosted the Panama Pacific International Exhibition. And this was when the city had been destroyed by a devastating earthquake. And half of the globe was at war at the time, so what did the city do? It put on a giant celebration, basically curating the whole planet, the best arts and inventions and industries at the time and invited the whole world to come to see. So that is the kind of spirit of San Francisco. And by the middle of the century, it has led the nation in as, for literary revival and political revolutions and countercultural ideas, from the San Francisco Renaissance to the Beat generation to the hippie movement. And this is the kind of cultural milieu that afterwards the epicenter of technology and capital of innovation that we know of came into being. I would say that without this bohemian soul, Silicon Valley innovation powerhouse would not last very long. On the other hand, displacement is not really new. The Bohemians in North Beach, we're looking at City Lights bookstore previously, they began the displacement of Italians, working class Italians. The hippies in Haight-Ashbury displaced the residents there. Castro was Irish before it became a gay mecca. And then the Mission District, that is hotly contested today, wasn't always working class Latinos and artists. There are other people who were displaced, for example, the Irish and the Germans. So change is part of life. It's very difficult, but it could also be an opportunity. For individual artists, individual people whose lives are affected, I can certainly understand the difficulties. My family and I have actually been kicked out of our rentals 2 times. The second time, we only had 2 months to move. So people's anger is rather understandable. On the other hand, there can be other reactions, and there have been other reactions. Stewart Brand, anyone know him? Oh, okay. So it's kind of the connection between the flower movement and the technology era. He's been calling for people to try out he sees this as an opportunity to try out new forms of living, like intentional tent communities. And there are others who are adapting. For example, University Arts, as one of the businesses, actually called up several art supply stores before my recent trip to China to buy Buddha board as a gift. And it turned out half of the stores are no longer at their listed locations. University Arts used to be in downtown Palo Alto, and their landlord wanted to rent it to a social networking company, so they had to move. But they ended up buying their new location, a relatively cheaper location in Redwood City. So they're their own landlord now, and they also, of course, have to adapt their business. They can't rely on foot traffic in downtown Palo Alto anymore, but now they're becoming more of a destination store. So people who really want to buy art supplies, they make a point to go there. And people would also point out that artists are always the ones who broke new ground. They're always the ones looking for cheaper places to hang out and places that have more creative energy anyway. And quite often, artist colonies become later on more attractive to the mainstream and becomes tourist destinations. Carmel being a telling example, or this district in Vancouver. I don't remember the name anymore. There are lots of examples, and Oakland today might become one of those destinations as an unintended beneficiary of this exodus. And also, ironically, as Fred Turner, the American cultural historian in Stanford, will tell you that the techies are just like artists. They are 2 prickly species, but have a lot in common. The tech culture, he would say, is a direct descendant of the hippie movement. Many of the techies, and including the tech companies, consider themselves working on social mission to transform the world for the better with their technology. And to a certain extent, that has been true. Like many things, it's a double-edged sword. There have also been negatives. But they do have a lot in common, these 2 groups of people. And we mentioned that the tech community has not embraced art, other than, one factor being that many of the millionaires and billionaires, they made their money in their 30s or even 20s, usually not the age when people start collecting art. But other than that, there's also the techies have a problem with the traditional art world. They consider it too stodgy. Many technology people think that they are the ones making art. In a sense, there is some legitimacy to it. In the art history, there have been many times where the highbrow art world was too slow in embracing new forms of art, which calls into a question of, what is art? How do we define art? Are there new definitions of art that we need to consider? And I know we have a panel later on that addresses this particular point. And another issue with modern day art world is that the art world has been cleaved from the world. Art has been separated from everyday life. So we go to the museums, we go to galleries to see art, but it's not part of everyday, and it didn't used to be the case, and it doesn't have to be the case. If we look at many of the creative epochs in human history, ancient Athens or Florence, etc., we look at great vases with awls, considering it a work of art. But at that time, they were utensils. They were water jars, they were wine vessels, but they were made with art nonchalantly. It's only today that we separate form and function, and maybe it's time that we reunite them back together, beauty and function back together. Amidst this tension between art and technology, a successful Chinese entrepreneur sums it up really nicely. I know we're in USF today, but Piero Lese's sessions in Stanford usually is held at Li Ka-shing Center. Li Ka-shing is that Chinese entrepreneur. He was giving a commencement speech just at the end of June at Shantou University, where he's a major donor of. And he said, I translate, "Science and technology are cornerstones of high growth. Human creativity is the engine, but social inclusion is the fuel. Only with all three can we enjoy dividends from a virtuous cycle." I think the fact that he remarked on this shows that really the tension and the huge changes is everywhere. It's not just in the Bay Area, it's worldwide, with this mind-boggling technological changes and the changes in the world. But the point being that the three have to be in symbiosis. If not, the virtuous cycle will break, and eventually everyone will suffer in the long run. So that's actually where Essinova is trying to play a small role. On the one hand, we're trying to help society understand and engage in science and technology through the beauty and critique of art. On the other hand, we're trying to bring art into science and technology, and perhaps more broadly into innovation, where researching and developing value propositions for art's capacity to catalyze innovation. So we think there's something beyond design thinking into art thinking. If anyone has a perspective on that, I'd love to talk to you. Before I finish, I just want to acknowledge my colleagues and friends who contributed to putting this together. Maria is here. I think Rishan was going to be here. She's not. So thanks for the help. And this is some list of other Bay Area resources. Not exhaustive, but some of the major ones. In terms of blogs and publications, you're welcome to browse our gallery and blog. We are going to have a new website for the agency side of things, but this is more content, which might be more interesting to you anyway. So thank you very much for listening.